Well, that's great, and everyone has kept to time, which means that we have lots of time for questions and comments. And again, let me just say that we're also welcoming comments and questions from those who are watching online. So let's open the floor for anyone who would like to say something. And could you please identify yourself, name and affiliation if you have one? Thanks.
Raffaella from Head-On Household Energy Network. My question is, so as I understand, MI is a manual. Are there plans to make a software enabling tool out of it?
You want to answer it? Sorry, Gabriella? Raffaella. Your question is whether or not we would turn it from being a paper manual into a actual software.
Yeah.
Or electronic copy.
They are
No,
an actual
more a tool, a software tool that takes the user through phases and guides
okay.
the user.
Currently,
Software application.
we don't have any plans to do that, but that's an interesting concept. We hadn't thought of that.
No.
So you'd enter the data in, and then it'd move you through the phases and automatically draw the maps for you. And okay, well, thank you very much. That's a great idea. Currently, no plans to do so there at the moment. We do have a soft copy that's available though, that's downloadable, and at the back of the manual there's a CD that has lots of resources on it as well, but no softwares yet.
Yes.
Hi from London South Bank and Practical Action. This is probably a very naive question, but I'm just interested. If, for example, as happened in Haiti, your perceptions of a particular market system are still changing very fast with every piece of data that comes in, with every interview, with every next interview. How do you decide what's a good point to say, I can make an assessment?
Yeah. It's a very good question. In fact, that's why we try to stress that what we're talking about is trends, or what, big picture, what is the level of priority for things, as opposed to, there's no final answer, because hopefully every day people recover a little bit, right? One of the things that we did definitely do in Haiti was say, look, somebody needs to look at this issue and this issue a bit more. So flagging those things that you think could become concerns. Both the construction labor and the CGI groups found that actually the construction market was at a standstill during the time that we were doing it, because they were waiting for signals. Are people going to be buying a lot? Because we don't have any contracts right now. And that was both the suppliers as well as like the big construction firms who hadn't lost their equipment, did have capacity, but they're like, we're waiting for the contract. So we had to put in recommendations that said, please keep paying attention to this.
Can I add something to that? I don't know whether Mike wants to too, but I think every assessment is a snapshot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true of all assessments. You're taking a picture at that moment in time. What is absolutely crucial is the monitoring that can follow on from that, so that you are managing to update your information as it comes in. And as you do so, you should be able to adjust your recommendations accordingly and change your interventions if need be. And that's one of the things that I think Mike has also developed, which is part on this, it's on the CD, isn't it, is a monitoring tool that should help you to try and keep your information as up to date and as current as possible, so that you can inform donors, inform your program, etc., etc.
Which you would want to do anyway as just
Which
good
you'd want to
programming.
as well. Yeah. In fact, that was one of the weaknesses. I should have mentioned that in my little blurb, that monitoring in markets is actually one of the, again, another challenge that I think we face in NGOs. We kind of know what we should be doing, but don't quite know why or what we should be looking for, and understanding what it means. What does it mean if the prices go up or go down? What is it trying to tell us? So we need to learn how to understand a bit better what we're looking for.
Leslie.
I think this is a fantastic thing, and so
Sorry, can you just I've identified you, sort of. Just
Okay.
complete that.
Leslie Adams, Independent. party. Yeah, no, I think this is absolutely superb because it's the culmination of multi-agency organizational collaboration. It's the private sector coming together with the not-for-profit sector when you're actually doing this work, and you're getting development players around the table as well as relief people. So hopefully you're going to be bridging those big gaps to do with the relief development divide that hampers a lot of good planning. I'm interested in finding out whether you're able to make organizations use this tool or make them have some kind of analysis. And after disasters, very often it's the coordinating bodies which can choose to ignore the issue of market recovery. So I'm wondering what your experience was in Haiti to do with the cluster coordination groups, and whether you can actually develop something a bit like with the Humanitarian Accountability Partnership. So agencies sign up, and then it's on their agency as a gold standard for their quality of their programming. But what was your experience in Haiti to do with making sure people don't make plans for bringing in all this stuff before they even find out what your results were?
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason that we had so many people at the report out, because people recognized they wanted this information, and they were thrilled that it was widely available. And WFP was doing an EFSA, an early food
Emergency food security assessment.
Thank you. I'm bad with acronyms. It was doing an EFSA that overlapped with the EMA by 1 week, and we luckily had a WFP person on our team, so we had coordination. Like, oh, you're covering that. Okay, good, because EMA won't cover that, and these kind of things. And we know that we also had OFDA and ECHO both at the report out, and I think it really comes from that point. I mean, OFDA has put so much resource into this because they're like, we want to know that we're funding good programs. So I think it's ultimately going to come from the donors saying, you have to do an assessment before you do a program, and so I think it will actually come quite naturally, both because we did a lot of work with the humanitarian, the NGO community to say, what do you want the tool to be able to provide, and tried to hold that up against what what the donors were saying they wanted. So I think it's in there, and I meant to say this when I was presenting before. Not only do we have OFDA and ECHO there, but PDNA, the assessment that's done by the Haitian government, the World Bank, and the EU, has also picked up the reports and is using them in their PDNA. So it's getting into the mix. I think we'll get there. I don't know.
Did the early recovery cluster, did they show an interest?
They were fantastic.
Great. Okay.
Once you finally found the person that you were supposed to be talking to, which was its own challenge, but it's on the cluster website. I was supposed to speak very shortly, very briefly, at the early recovery cluster, and then it got canceled for reasons beyond our control, but the intention was there, yeah.
That's also an area we're going to be looking at in the next phase, is trying to engage with donors a bit more, and also with the clusters. So I know the shelter cluster's shows lots of interest in using EMA, and hopefully the other clusters will show interest as well.
We've got, I think, some other people waiting, unless it's directly. Yes. Okay. Well, if the others don't mind, go ahead.
It is absolutely imperative, if at all possible, that you get the shelter cluster on board with other clusters, because it's such a kind of insular cluster that it's very important to.
They were
to
also they were actually part of the informant for both the labor group and the CGI group. So they were at the report out. They were involved. Yes, very much.
Okay, I think there's someone over here who'd been waiting for a while. Was that you? Yeah.
I had a question. I caught half of what you were saying, and
Could you identify yourself?
my name is Michael Carter. Sorry. One of the things I'm starting to understand, because I'm on a course looking at sort of economic development, and I'm from an economics background, which is mine. The question I have is, what is the development community doing to sort of bring about these, and after a disaster situation, to bring about this sort of indicators, so that the factors that will create demand? Because it seems like there's a bit of a reflexive attitude, because it doesn't seem like there is a initiative to make sure that a market has demand-driven sort of factors. For example, if a company goes into a new area, they're looking at all the ways, unfortunately this word is going to probably bristle a bit, to sort of exploit the economy within a particular sort of amount of goods and services that would be able to hit the ground and be able to generate other sort of goods and services that can be implemented into the marketplace. It doesn't seem like there's a, or maybe I haven't actually read this report, but just in what I've studied thus far, it doesn't seem like there is a sort of market-driven aspect to being able to make sure that the local economy can have sort of a full structured range of goods and services that will then in turn push development often a lot faster than development communities, because if we've noticed historically, communities move faster when they have an initiative to be able to be a part of bringing about a better quality of life. So my very long-winded question is, I'm aware of that, are there sort of movements afoot to be able to maybe add sort of clear economic planning to disaster relief, just to ensure that the rule of law will be essentially established often after clear sort of economic planning, and then to be able to move the sort of communities forward through demand-driven sort of market systems?
I don't know if anyone is prepared to answer that question.
I think I'll start, and then maybe Karri can take over. The scope of the toolkit is and was originally conceived very much as being about starting to get some understanding of market systems into the thinking of humanitarian and relief agencies at the very early stages of an emergency response. So if you like, we're starting from a blank page where a lot of agencies don't even think about it, or they're beginning to think about it. So the toolkit, the toolkit is the foot in the door, if you like, of encouraging agencies to think about the role that markets can play in facilitating, first of all, in providing the relief or the responses that they're trying to meet, but secondly also in thinking beyond the relief phase and thinking what could we do that would actually facilitate the recovery of the local economy faster. So I don't think the M Toolkit is just a foot in the door, if you like. There's a lot of interest in taking, in market integrated relief, I think is the phrase that has been coined particularly by the SEEP network. So there's a lot of interest in your question and what's going on, but I think you've got to see the EMA Toolkit as just the first step in, and its audience is agencies that possibly are just scared of the idea of going and talking to a trader. But maybe, Karri, you can...
I with regards to Emma, I agree completely, and I would say to answer your question more deeply, I'd refer you to things like the SEEP minimum standards for economic recovery and emergencies, which talks very much about market-driven responses as being best practice. Look at Microlinks, which has lots and lots of resources about what folks are already doing in relation to your question. There are a lot of resources out there that can, sort of, your question is very broad and there's a lot of different ways to answer it, but those would be the two places I would recommend you start looking.
Now we've got people on both sides of the room, but before I call on you, we've also got a question that's come in from an online watcher. So I'm just going to read the question and then let the panelists respond. So this is from Courtney Brown from OFDA. Courtney's asking whether saying the trainings in DC, London, Jordan, and Bali were designed to produce a cadre of potential team leaders that can conduct EMAs. How can organizations access that list of people if they'd like to find a team leader for their EMA? The reason for asking is because there's an organization in Haiti right now who'd like to conduct a second EMA but needs a team leader to do so.
Thanks, Courtney. We were just discussing this about an hour ago, and so the immediate answer to the question is we will send that list to that organisation this afternoon. But the broader response is we are intending to put this kind of information on the EMA website, And also through the Emma website, you can join, or anyone who's interested in staying in touch with the Emma community can join the D group community, which has been set up for Emma as well. So you'll find all the answers to that kind of question on the Emma website.
Right.
No, that's it. That's what I would say.
Okay, let's start over here, and then each time raise your hands, and I think we'll have time for everybody.
Thanks. Adrian Nance, Wings Like Eagles. I'm just trying to work out how Emma, and I apologise for being late, so you may have covered this, so how Emma integrates with the coping strategies that there are on the ground in economic terms. Does the toolkit have the flexibility to both discover and therefore reinforce that which the community that is affected is actually trying to do for itself, rather than just concentrating on whether the NGOs have thought about the economic consequences of their actions?
Thank you. Interesting question. I mean, explicitly, yes, the toolkit, in the first strand that I mentioned, the gap analysis strand, is essentially about prompting agencies to understand as best they can in the time they have available what are the livelihood strategies and the coping responses of the target population. That might be as simple as finding out what people's preferences are for the form of sort of relief that they receive, but hopefully it goes beyond that, and it prompts users of the toolkit to understand better how what kind of livelihood strategies target population have. There's not often time to do that in the kind of time frame that Emma might be used at, but often that information is there if people look for it. There may well be, for example, HEA analyses that have been done of target populations or similar populations beforehand. So the toolkit prompts users to investigate those kind of questions and try and find out, if only from secondary literature, what the kind of coping strategies are.
Okay, there's someone at the back here who's been waiting a long time. Please.
Thank you. I'm Anne Davies. I'm an independent consultant, and I've just come back actually from an evaluation of British NGOs' action emergency response in Padang, and I was waiting with bated breath to hear what the report from Padang was. I think you were going to talk about that, the Emma rollout there. Could you give me, no? Was Padang not one of the...
Well, I'll let you finish your
Okay.
question.
No, I just wanted to know how Emma was received there, and what difference did it make to the agencies in their responses, in fact?
You're catching me on the hop. I was actually on maternity leave at the time, so just casting my mind back. The Emma in Padang, and I think, Mike, you might know more as well, was basically looking at construction, so bricks for construction.
Mm-hmm.
And it was done for the shelter cluster, so they requested this information. And it was a rapid assessment done by Rick Bauer in Oxfam, Jonathan Brass, and I think an HSP called Loreto, with other staff, I'm sure. I don't have their names. And if I remember correctly, the recommendations were that the brick market could be re-stimulated, and the brick market was predominantly female. It was mainly women who were the brick makers. So the recommendation was to re-stimulate that market, and it could provide enough materials. Is that right, Mike? Can you remember more?
Is that posted on
I can actually send you the report.
That's what I was going to say. We can
if
send
would
you the
like.
report.
If you give me your email
Yeah.
details, and I can put you in touch with Rick as well, if you'd like.
Also, the report is on the, if not on the website directly, it's on the D Group community site, so you can find it through the, if you're not already, if you join the D Group community, you'll find that report as well as all the other reports.
Okay, now I know we've got a lot of questions here and there, but I'm going to take this person here who's been waiting, then we'll come back to you.
Thank you. The name is John Grimwood. I'm a member of the South East London Supporters Group for Practical Action. I'd like to pick up points made variously already about bridging the gap between humanitarian or disaster relief and development. And my question is really, how does Emma or the EMA approach differ according to whether markets were or were not functioning efficiently before the disaster, especially in relation to making those markets work for the poor.
Should we go down to Mike?
Thank you, John, for that question. Yes, I didn't touch on this in my presentation, but the core of EMA is about comparing the kind of before and after situation. So the first step really is to map retrospectively what market system was like prior to the shock, and obviously understanding that is one of the biggest aids to working out whether it's going to be capable of playing an adequate, sufficient role in the emergency response. If there was no market system prior to the emergency in that particular product, it's unlikely that it's going to suddenly come into emergence when you inject a lot of cash, for example, into the local economy. On the other hand, if you had a market prior to the crisis that was working pretty well, but has been disabled by the shock, then it's more plausible that, or more likely that you can, reinvigorate it through various, whatever kind of support is needed to get the market system functioning again. So, in short, it's absolutely central to the EMA analysis is this comparison of the baseline and the existing situation. And in that light, one of the things that one would ideally have, of course, is prior kind of market profiles done of critical markets in vulnerable areas as part of a sort of disaster risk reduction strategy. You wouldn't have to go and find out what the market was like before, because you would know that this is a food insecure area and these kind of crises are possible, and you would be doing that market profiling hopefully on a regular basis. This is something that I know FuseNet are very interested in, and other agencies would like to invest in, but it's in the future.
To add on that point, I think it's something that we have already realized through the piloting is this idea of the pre-EMA or whatever, looking at markets prior to the disaster so that you've already got a baseline, particularly in areas that are prone to disasters of some kind. We recognize that's another part of the next phase of EMA, the coming phase. And we were very, very lucky in Haiti because FuseNet operates there, has great price information on particularly rice and beans. And there was some talk about encouraging them to look at construction materials in the same way that they look at food commodities, at least for a certain period of time when we know that construction materials are likely to be in greater demand than previously. So, yeah.
Should I have the
Yes, I think it's just there.
I don't think, thank you for those answers, but you didn't quite answer the question about the concentration on the poor. It's quite likely that the markets, even if they were working efficiently before, weren't working sufficiently well for the poorest members of that community. I'm just wondering if in your EMA toolkit, you try to work and build back better than was before, concentrating on the poor. I'm sorry, I'm using practical action jargon here, largely.
As you may know that within practical action this year we're going to be focusing some resources on looking specifically at this issue of building back better and how we can incorporate EMA type analysis into strategies for disaster risk reduction. And so that's very much our organisational agenda. I don't know, it's probably not something that you would pick up directly from the toolkit, because for the sake of keeping the toolkit a manageable size, we had to concentrate on the priorities as identified by the humanitarian agencies that commissioned it. But certainly lots of agencies, including Practical Action, have seen the relationship between this kind of analysis and the kind of questions you're asking about how to build back better, how to make markets work for the poor in future. And of course the toolkit is based on a Practical Action methodology that we use precisely for that kind of objective in our long-term development work.
I think there's an issue as well of starting with do no harm. I mean, we know that a lot of the activities that we do have done harm to local economies. And so let's first stop that, and then we can look at, you know, improving on that. But, you know, I feel like that's part of the issue as well.
Right, Laura.
Thanks. I'm Laura Hammond from the School of Oriental and African Studies, as well as FEG Consulting. And my question is framed around something that, Karri, you said, but perhaps actually Mike and Lili might be placed to respond to it, which is that you said that Emma is a kind of first response or a first line form of assessment, and that HEA, household economy analysis, is something that you would do later on. And from what I know about Emma so far, one of the things that attracts me to it is the idea that, in fact, you can do these two kinds of analysis simultaneously, and that, in fact, Emma's gap analysis is, in very much a sense, a kind of an abbreviated form of what HEA would do in terms of looking at what's happening with livelihoods at the same time. But we know that clearly some needs exist and develop outside of market dynamics, and that's where HEA has a strength. And of course, there's the Emma market-oriented aspects as well. So I'm a little bit nervous about kind of making a linear progression kind of a model of use this first and then use this, and wanted to know what you thought about the complementarity of these two kinds of approaches.
Should I respond and you can add in? I think what I was just trying to say, we have the same sort of level of discomfort with cash, because you might do an Emma and find that you should do cash, and you might find that you shouldn't. And so I'm very sensitive to the issue overall. I think what I was trying to say is Emma only does what it does. It can't do everything, and we shouldn't assume that we have all the answers once you've finished the Emma. It's merely a way of being able to make better decisions earlier in the funding process, and recognizing and flagging those things that then will need more attention ultimately. So, I mean,
I think you probably answered the question, but yes, they are complementary. They really are. And in fact, if we look back at the first ever iteration of Emma, and in those days it was called RMAT, Rapid Market and Assessment Tool, we had a huge section in there which pretty much was an assessment approach very similar to HEA, actually, the kind of livelihood groups and so forth. And then we came to the conclusion that we should just take that out, because the reality is that agencies will use their own assessment tools, their own way of assessing, be it HEA or something else, and then they can move on to Emma quite nicely once they know what the needs were, and what the priorities were, what the critical markets were. And that's why in Emma, and Mike can probably tell you that the page, when you start, I think it is step 1 or step 2, it tells you what you need before you actually start the Emma process. And what you need, there's a nice little checklist. What you'll need is understanding what your critical markets are based on your assessment approach, be it HA or something else, and so forth and so forth and so forth, and understanding who your target population are. So they're very complementary. In fact, I think, as Mike said, we stole a lot from the HEA as well.
Okay, now, yes, sorry.
Miles Murray with KUSA. Following up, a similar question to the one about Padang. Lili highlighted at the start that Emma was designed to inform responses. And I was interested, therefore, to follow up on the recent Haiti assessment, for example, for shelter materials. How much you've seen either donors or agencies themselves adapting their programs in response to the findings that, for example, that people wanted contributions in kind.
With specific regards to the shelter, I don't know the answer, and I think we're kind of waiting to see what comes out of the donor conference, more specifically, which is, what is the date of the Haiti donor conference? Someone in this room must know. It's in March. We don't entirely have the answer to that, but that's one of the things that we're looking at now is how do we get a system in place to track then what happened a little bit. You know, ultimately it's the responsibility of different NGOs to take forward the activities that are appropriate for their, capacities and mandate and da-da-da. But we still kind of want to know so that we can answer questions like that, and we're working on it.
I know what Oxfam's doing, and we're looking at the findings from the rice market in great detail, and looking at ways in which we can work with the small, they're called boutiques, so the small kind of dukas, the small store holders, and looking at issues around storage and so forth. So we're working with that. And is Alesh in the room? Yes? Okay, so maybe we should introduce you as well, because I think the work that you're going to be doing is going to be very important as well. As far as I understand, Alesh, you're doing a master's, is that right? Yeah. Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, and he's going to be going to Haiti to review how people have used Emma in Haiti, how they've changed their programs or included Emma into their programming decisions.
And then what happened?
And as you heard from Courtney as well, there's a second Emma planned in Jacmel as well. So it's an ongoing process, and because it's a snapshot, again, you might want to look at your monitoring information and update it as you go along and change your decisions as you go along.
It'd be very interesting to
yeah.
Back from that.
Yeah.
And those of you who are staying, you can also chat over sandwiches about more of the details. Yes.
My name is Marina. I'm an engineer, so I have been working, it would be in the shelter and the wash cluster in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Uganda. So I've been implementing, and I always try to buy locally, and I mean having this attitude of enhancing the local market. And there were numerous problems. Administrative, logistical, there was nobody to sign anything more than $2,000 at that spot, only at the capital. So the consciousness was just not there. I'm at Oxford Brookes doing a master's there at the moment, and I want to I picked that as dissertation, like how do you create this attitude that I think it's a mainstream thing, it's an attitude that you always look at the market. My question is, your tool is fantastic and it worked. So I'm wondering, what is it that made it work? When I was on your blog and I was just amazed. I was reading it every day, and it was like when you were standing on the truck handing out hygiene kits to the women. These 97 people, what did they say? Why did they come? I mean, what did you do? There it worked. With Emma it worked what had been tried ages ago. We can learn from that.
I don't even know. Why did it work? I think, honestly, it was because of the work that Lili and Mike and many others did before ever putting pen to paper to find out what was needed from agencies. What did NGOs want to be getting? And then the process, I mean, Lili said, it's been a 3-year process. We've been talking about this for so long that people are starting to actually listen, or getting bored and just listening to get us to shut up. I don't know, but I don't know. Why do you think people's attitudes have changed?
And the buy-in, I think having so many agencies involved throughout the process has made it far easier for people to actually pick it up and use it. I mean, I think overall we've had, 20, 30 agencies who've been checking in on Emma over the 3 years, and probably about 15 of those, or 10 of those have been very, very active in the pilots and so forth.
Yeah, so I think the pilots helped.
They've got a vested interest in actually using the tool, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, the pilots were when people really started to learn what the difference would be.
Great. Okay, we need to wrap up quite soon, but we've got a question here. Was there one over here as well? Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you're out of my line of vision, so why don't you go first?
I didn't put it up before. So I was waiting for my time.
You were just thinking it.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking, when? My name's Claire McCarthy. I'm from Wings Like Eagles. Is this on? Is it working? Yeah, yes. Good. I was late, and I haven't read the form, so I'm really new to all this. But just to say, is there facility when you have a disaster like Haiti and you go in and it's major, you've got to get, the time frame is tight. You've got to get in there and get helping people and saving lives, etc., etc. So is there a facility with Emma that you go in, you have a leader who coordinates all of you NGOs, so you know that you're all working together and supporting each other, so you're united, although you're coming in for different things. Is there any sort of system like that, so that you can be more effective because you're united than if you're working separately? Even though you've got the Emma tool and you're going in, you still need to be united. So you still need to have somebody come and say, right, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Let's hook you all together. And then you're working as a team together. And then if there's something that is not being dealt with, then you can look and say, well, we need someone to do that. And then that's pulled in and it's done together. And you're united. Is there that facility?
Yeah, I was the team leader. Lily helped, even prior to getting on the ground, Lily helped pull together who from various organizations was interested and ready to participate, either on the ground or the organization was going to fly them in. When I got on the ground, I then had that team already. So, and they were prepped, I would say. Step one is, you know, if you've all got this. So step one is essential preparation. And what that meant was make sure you've read tuck reports, plus any other that you are aware of, please let us know. I mean, there's an expectation when you do an Emma that people come prepared.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to ask was something you mentioned when you stood up, and it was about how it's not cash involved, it's we have this, we can offer this, we can offer this. And I think that is very, very pertinent in society anyway, not just in something like this, where we all have skills, and it's not about, well, I'm going to charge you this, it's I will give you this, I will give you this, and you will give me this. And so as you go into Haiti and you help the local people, and they're in, you know, dire straits, that there's no holes barred. Everybody gives what they can of whatever their gifts are, kind of thing, so that help gets to where it needs to be in the time frame, quickly. And I think that really speaks to me that it's not about money, it's about what we can offer the local people to get them back on their feet. You know, I could bang on forever.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on the...
sorry, could you just identify
Oh, yes, sorry. I'm Lucho Osorio. I work in Practical Action with Mike and Alison Griffith next to me in the Markets and Livelihoods program. And I've had the privilege of experiencing the power of the market map that Mike presented previously in his talk. And I think that for me, has a big role in why Emma has worked or is working. What we have seen in the different projects where we have applied the market map in participatory market mapping workshops, where different stakeholders come together to the same room and start understanding how their market looks like and where the blockages are and the opportunities are, is that the power of that graphic representation that draws the attention of the discussions to a single point. I think from the learning perspective that has huge implications, and I would like to highlight that element because probably it goes unnoticed. Yeah. And I think it has a big role in why Emma is working. And I think that Alesh's research is going to help us understand and probably test that hypothesis about what is the role of the graphic representation, that mental model of the market system in getting all of these processes going. I'm really excited, especially in terms of how do we get these kind of complex concepts of market systems and markets in general transferred to people who have not thought generally about this. Because I think that it's not only applicable in the humanitarian sector, but also for NGOs in general, who are trying to convey concepts related to markets and market development to people who have never thought about this before. So it's really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any final comments or questions before we close this part of the session and move over to our sandwiches and sign-up sheets? Yes.
Hi, I'm Alison Griffith from Practical Action 2. But I'm not going to follow on from what Lucio was saying. Instead, I would like to bring a question that I was asked in Khartoum about 3 weeks ago by some agencies who I was talking to about Emma. I went to Sudan to spend some time with our program team. This was still warm from Practical Action Publishing, so I took it with me, and our director decided it would be a good idea to invite some of the agencies working in Darfur to come and talk to us about it. Slightly alarming for me, given that I'm not on the humanitarian side of things, but the development side of things. Luckily, Anita Albach, who Mike was talking about, who piloted it, was there, so that was fantastic. But one of the things that the agencies asked me was, this toolkit is kind of built for sudden onset emergencies, but many organisations are working in more protracted situations. Obviously, they're in the very tricky situation in Darfur, and they were extremely enthusiastic about having a tool like this and wanted to know a little bit about its applicability in that type of situation.
Should we let them answer first? Or? Yeah, okay. And then we'll have to close, yeah.
Well, Alison, I think as agencies in Khartoum have discovered that it's not only sudden onset situations where this kind of analysis seems to be in demand. We designed the toolkit for sudden onset situations on the assumption that this is situations where you don't have time to find an expert to come in and analyse the markets. And I suppose that one question that goes begging is why in a protracted chronic situation agencies aren't doing this kind of analysis with people who are market experts. But given that apparently doesn't happen, or at least not very often, actually that's not true. It is happening. It is happening increasingly. There are actually other toolkits that are being developed for those kind of situations, particularly I should mention the MIFERA toolkit, which has been developed by Chris Barrett and CARE specifically for looking at food insecure regions and markets. But this is one of the agendas for developing, for broadening the scope of Emma and toolkits like Emma, is to inculcate market analytical thinking into chronic food insecure and other chronic crisis situations.
Final
point. As a learner and a teacher, very much interested in using graphical representation for problem solving, and I have been reading how hospitals, social services have been using it very effectively. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think we're finished then, but I wanted to thank you all for coming, and to those who are listening online for tuning in, and to our presenters, Mike, Lili, and Karri, and the agencies they represent. So thank you very much for coming. I hope you'll stay with us and come next door. I'm not quite sure. There's a door that opens out there, and we'll work that out. But there are sandwiches, things to drink on the other side, and we can carry on the conversation. Of course, if you want to get your very own copy of Emma, you can buy it next door. Thank you very much.